Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I'm your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and this is the show that educates, empowers, entertains, and inspires you to live your most fearlessly authentic life. I believe it's never too late to embrace who you truly are, break through limitations, and live bold and strong. This show is your place for real conversations about health, fitness, mindset, and the courage it takes to live unapologetically. Each week, we bring you inspiring guests and actionable advice to help you take charge of your life. So let's get on with the show. I was honored to speak at a retreat this weekend and to be in the company of a lot of incredible human beings, people that are making a huge impact on other people's lives, in other people's lives. And I'm getting a little tongue-tied here because I'm a little emotional about it. And we tend to get a little overwhelmed in our thoughts because our brain is going so fast and we're thinking about all of these things. But as I mentioned, I was honored to be a part of this retreat, not knowing anybody except for one person. That seems to be the thing that happens to me a lot of times these days. And just being in a room with people that are elevating themselves and other people around them every single day. And to feel this energetic vibration, positive vibes, this elevation of mindset and purpose and legacy. And I guess I'm at the age where I'm thinking about my legacy. I've been thinking about it for a while, but when it was brought up a few times, I thought about that and what success means and what being brave means and taking risks means. And so there is a lot to unpack in this episode because there is always more and more work we can do on ourselves to become more aware of what it is that we want out of life. And this retreat touched upon how to win in life, how to win with family, relationships, finance, fitness. And there were experts that got up and spoke. And I was asked to speak about relationships. And at first I thought, I'm not a relationship expert, but I can definitely share what has gone on in my life and bring some value there. But I really had to think long and hard about what did I want everyone in that room to walk away learning about, hearing about my story to give it some perspective, and then taking away what they can and how it related to themselves and how they can avoid making the same mistakes that I did. Yes, I've made mistakes along the way. And when it comes to finance and relationships, romantic relationships, that's what I wanted to sort of unpack today. And I want to first start by saying that it doesn't make a difference where you are in life, what age you are, or what stage in life you're in. If I thought that at almost 64 years old, I would be speaking on a podcast that I was the host of and talking about my relationships, sharing my experiences to help other people, I would have said, "Are you friggin' kidding me?" Which is what I said to the person who wanted me to speak about relationships. "Are you friggin' kidding me?" And his response was, "No. Like, share what you know, people will learn something from you." And that is exactly what happened. And with every experience talking about things, as I'm sure you all know, you learn more and more about yourself in a way that maybe you never discovered these things. So for a lot of you, you know my backstory, but I am going to give you a brief background story for those of you who are new today and joining the show. I was married for 17 years. I worked as a buyer for a small department store, think like a Macy's type of thing. If Macy's is even still around, I think it is. And it was a small sized Macy's type of store. And I happened to be the buyer for petite sportswear, not because I'm short, but because that just happened to be what I applied for. I started out as a manager in one of the stores, and then I was promoted to assistant buyer, and then I was promoted to buyer. So I was always used to getting everything I went after. Do you know what I mean? If I wanted something, I got it. If I wanted to date this boy, I dated this boy. If I wanted to get this job, I got this job. Things just happened for me. And I think it's because I think a lot of it had to do with being naive about, well, didn't you ever think about the obstacles in the road? No. And maybe that had to do with a lack of life experiences at the time, or just this belief in myself. I don't really know what to attribute it to, because everybody has a story for where they came from and where they are now. And hopefully it is a quote unquote better place for everybody. I just went along life going, okay, well, I meet a boy, he falls in love with me, I fall in love with him, he asks me to marry him, we get married, I move back to Connecticut, we move in together, he buys a place, a couple of years later, we buy a house, a few years later, we have a baby. Boom, 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 boom. Each year he owns his own business, he makes more money. Like, these are just the things that were happening. Just boom, 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 boom. And I just assumed that's how life went. I didn't I didn't consider how grateful I was. And I didn't think I was lucky because I worked my ass off. But this is what I'm trying to say, is that I never had to stop and think, why is this happening for me? I just lived it. And you hear those kind of stories from very successful people. And if you asked me in my 30s or in my 20s, was I successful? I wouldn't even have thought about that. I would have thought, yeah, I guess. Isn't this what everybody does? And I'm not sitting here to say, look what I've done. This is not the point of it. The point is that I was living in an abundant mindset and thinking, of course I can do this. Of course I can do this. Of course I can do this. Like, why wouldn't I be able to do it? Again, attributing that to a lack of life experiences or not being very self-aware. Or maybe I was incredibly self-aware and connected to what I wanted to happen. So I think about that often, and I'd love to know if any of you ever think like that, like things like shit just happened for me, right? Like shit just happened. I didn't have to think about it. So got pregnant right away, and then I had two miscarriages. So that was like my first bump in the road. Like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't plan on having a miscarriage. And then I had another miscarriage. Like, wait a minute. Life is kind of getting hard right now. Why is this happening for me? Why is this happening to me? It was a huge loss. I was only 7 weeks along, so nobody knew. But then we got pregnant again, and then I lost the baby again. So I've been pregnant 4 times, and I have 2 children. So needless to say that when my little one came around 3 years, 9 months later, that I had a different outlook on life, you know? I didn't have that lookout. Well, when I go after something, I get it. And again, that really wasn't even my outlook. I just went after things and I always got it. So obviously incredibly grateful for the 2 healthy children I have, my grown adult daughters that are 31 and 35. And after that, I think that something just sort of pushed me a little bit and I realized that life isn't always going to be, rainbows and puppy dogs. There's going to be shit along the way. And I've always been in shape. I've always never had an issue with weight or anything like that. And I had obesity in my family, but I didn't, I never had an issue with that. But after I had Lexi in 93, I wanted to get into the best shape of my life. And you've heard me talk about this. And I did, and I went after it, and I was consistent, and I was disciplined. And you've heard this story about other things about how people judged me and made fun of me for counting my macros and eating 4 times a day and going to the gym every day, and I'm gonna, look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm gonna get big and bulky, and I didn't listen to any of those people because I was on my own journey. And what it did was it made me mentally stronger. Obviously, it made me physically stronger and leaner. And again, I didn't do this to lose weight. I remember I just came across the information a few days ago. Just to give you some idea, I was 33 at the time, and I think I weighed 105. And so the goal wasn't to lose weight, it was just to get fucking strong, to get fit as fuck. And I think after 12 weeks, my weight was 102, but my body fat had gone from 23 to 18%, which was never high, but just trying to give you some perspective. I'm a very disciplined and consistent person. That made me mentally really, really strong to handle the challenges of marriage, to handle things that were going to come my way. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because this isn't an episode about menopause, but I will tell you that I did hit menopause, perimenopause around 38. And that's when I went to my PCP and he gave me Prozac. So for you ladies listening right now, Prozac is not the answer for unbalanced hormones. If your doctor prescribes Prozac or Zoloft or something like that, run and go find a hormone expert. And if you haven't listened to my episode with Dr. Marco Lujic, listen to that. I recorded it in July. Everything you need to know about your hormones. But again, this is not an episode about hormones, so I'm not going to get deep into it. And it was at that time around 38. So my girls were 5 and 9 at the time, that I realized that I had gotten really super fit. I felt really good about myself, mentally and physically, more confident. But I didn't have anybody supporting me. I wanted to compete in fitness shows at the time. And my ex-husband said, not when you're my wife. Like, go do it with another husband. But as long as you're on my watch, basically, there will be no fitness competitions for you. That was at 35. I remember him telling me that because I remember looking through Oxygen magazine, which was the magazine for women in the fitness industry then. And I felt myself sort of like elevating, growing out of the relationship. I felt myself wanting to do more. Yes, I loved being a mom. I didn't like taking care of the house and all those things. I had somebody to help me do that. I had somebody for everything, but I'm their only mommy. So I loved being a mom. Best job in the world, hardest job in the world. But I wanted to do something more. There was something more. I was very involved in an organization at the time. I was president of it, and I got more and more involved in it. So that gave me that purpose. Like, I want to do more. I want to help people. And I was teaching classes and training private clients on the side, but doing all of this very, very part-time. But I knew there was more for me out of life than being the pretty wife of a man who made a lot of money and gave us this luxurious life and these two beautiful, healthy girls. What am I leaving as my legacy? And as I wanted to grow and do more, whether it was to train more clients or have more of my own money, because I didn't. I gave that all up in 1989 when my daughter was born. I would talk to him about things, and he was very busy with work, and he just didn't support me on anything I wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do was compete in fitness shows. But I also thought about going back to retail and being a buyer or start opening up my own store. And he didn't support me on any of those things. And so after many conversations, after a lot of therapy, I told him what I needed. And he said that it was stupid and he dismissed it. And I thought, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I need to do more. And at 42, I got divorced. I needed to show my daughters that there was much more about their mom than going shopping and having lunch with my girlfriends. They knew I worked out. That was a basic. Like working out was like brushing my teeth. So that was a non-negotiable. But I wanted them to see me in a different light. They saw their dad going to work every single day. I wanted them to see me accomplish something. And I thought about this. I thought, am I in competition with him? Why is this important to me? And I realized that no, Jody, you were put on this earth to be brave, to be a leader, to do what you feel is right in your gut. So none of my friends supported me. They all thought I was crazy for divorcing him and leaving this life of luxury. And maybe I was, but money has never driven me. And a lot of people just thought I was crazy back then. Not crazy, crazy, but crazy like, why would you ever leave this lifestyle? You have everything that you would ever need in your life. And I just said to myself, because I know there's more for me out there, and I can't do it if he's not supporting me. I can't do it in this present relationship. So I started from the bottom up. I had to look for my self-esteem. I had to build up my confidence and thank God for working out because I had a community of people that had the same beliefs as me, who expected me to show up at the gym. And that kept me really strong. And as we get older, having a community of people that we can relate to will keep us strong, will keep us healthy. You don't want to be lonely as you get older. I was just talking to a friend about that today, that getting older does bring in sometimes self-isolation and loneliness. But I had that community. I was in my 40s, so I was young. I was vibrant. I wanted to take life by the balls. And it was at that moment that I knew I was in charge of my destiny. And I started taking risks because before then, I was a self-proclaimed scaredy cat. I was, remember, I told you, I just did things and they happened, did things and they happened. I want to do this. I want to get that job. I want to move here. I want to marry this person. And it all happened until I realized that not everything that you want, Jody, is going to come to you that easily because I suffered through those two miscarriages. And now I was going through a divorce because I knew there was more to my life than what I had. There was more to me than I needed to show my daughters and I needed to show myself. Think about, when was the last time you thought about taking a step that would benefit your own well-being? When was it? Did you take that big leap of faith? Did you believe in yourself? Or were you scared? Did you let fear stop you? Because I always let fear stop me until I didn't. Because I knew that if I wanted to accomplish great things, that I had to embrace fear or step over it and say bye-bye, buckle it in next to me in the car, however you want to put it. But I looked at fear straight in the eyes and I said, get out of my way. Get the fuck out of my way, fear. You are not going to stop me from becoming great. And when I say great, I mean accomplishing great things, helping people in their lives to feel that greatness. I didn't want any woman to feel held back like the way I did. And here now at 63 years old, I still want to get that message clear to all of you right now. I don't care how old you are. I spoke to girls in their 20s and 30s this past weekend that aren't sure of the next step, aren't sure of the next step in their work, in their relationship, in their business, with their families. And they have so much more self-awareness than I ever did at that age. But I'm grateful for what I went through. And I wish that I understood gratitude more. I didn't take it for granted, but I wish I was more aware. But I was only as aware of as I could be, right? We didn't talk about things like that. Remember, they were trying to give me Prozac because I was feeling depressed when all it was, not all it was, but it was perimenopause. And what should have been done was to check my hormones and to put me on some estrogen or testosterone or progesterone, whatever I was deficient in. So from there, I accomplished a lot of things. I started competing. I had no support. I became a two-time world bikini champion at the age of 49 when everybody told me I was too old. I lost friends when I wanted to compete. Nobody supported me. Absolutely nobody supported me on my venture. And then they saw me winning and they thought, oh, she's onto something. Wow. Wow, she's winning. We thought she was too old to do this. No, I wasn't too old, and I knew I wasn't too old. And from there, I had the confidence to open up my own studio. And everybody told me I was too old. The guy I worked for, the young guy I worked for in a gym was like, who the hell do you think is going to come to you? You're too old to open up your own gym. That was in 2009. So a lot has changed in my life, more belief in myself. I ended up getting into a toxic relationship, and eventually I got out of that. And that was all in the throes of menopause. Again, my tank was empty, no hormones. Um, who knows how the relationship could have been different. I'm not blaming myself for the demise of it, but again, big message here, get your hormones checked if you feel like something is off. And the whole point of talking about all of these things right now is about discovering the love that you have for yourself all over again. I lost myself in my marriage, and some may say I numbed myself by getting involved in so many other activities. Now, the gym was my meditation. The gym was my retreat. But what was really going on is that slowly I forgot about loving myself. And in the toxic relationship I was in, it was on again, off again. You guys know what those relationships are like. The sex is great, you stay, he seems different, you try to work on it, you get back together, shit happens again. And all along, as I was getting older and older, I realized that, what about you, Jody? When are you going to start loving you? Now, I was divorced, but I was always and still will be connected to my ex-husband. And he was a pain in my ass for a lot of those years too. So my kids are growing up. One is going off to college. I'm in a toxic relationship. I'm in the throes of menopause. I'm still competing. I've opened up a studio. I've got people who work for me. I've got a boyfriend that is toxic, and I've got an ex-husband that's annoying. Try that on for size. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to go back to my 50s. Never, ever, ever. I call it the messy, messy middle age. Yep, 50s. And so I want you to think right now, when was the last time you experienced joy? And when was the last time you told yourself how much you loved yourself? I don't want you to forget to love yourself, because in the chaos of life, taking your kids to practice, to dance lessons, to piano lessons, school functions, we forget to love ourselves. Even when we go to a gym class, we go to a Pilates class, we do something for ourselves for that 1 hour. Girls, that's not enough. We've got to love ourselves all day long. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a few minutes.
You are listening to Fearlessly Authentic with Jody Harrison Bauer. We'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments you may have. Send an email to info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. That's info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. Now, back to Fearlessly Authentic.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Fearlessly Authentic. And we are unpacking a lot today, literally and figuratively. And the whole purpose of today's episode is really recognizing how important it is to love yourself. And a lot of people have been telling me lately how brave I am for what's going on in my life right now. And I don't look at it as bravery. I look at it as survival mode, that I was in survival mode to self-love again. Because as I mentioned before the break, in the chaos of life and taking care of other people who might suck the fucking life out of you, you need to take care of yourself. I don't care if you're an empath like me. I don't care if you're a nurturer like me. But at some point, you have to put up the damn boundaries and say, no more. I need air for myself. I need love for myself. And if we can't change this situation together, then maybe it's time that we take a break and think about when we are, when we're not, why aren't we? And maybe we're better off alone than we are together, because it takes two hands to clap. You cannot clap with one hand. There needs to be a partner there. And finding that self-love and gaining that perspective is going to get you there, because we don't want to live in survival mode. That is a scarcity mindset. That is fear stopping you. But when we learn to acknowledge the love that we have for ourselves, and if we don't have the love for ourselves, how are we going to find that love for ourselves? And it comes with writing yourself a love letter. Dear Jody, I love you for this, this, and this. I love you for being brave. I love you for taking care of your daughters. I love you for your open heart. I love you for helping me make a change in my life. Whatever your love letter is to yourself, I really want you to think about that. Why do you love yourself? And if you can't come up with any reasons why, then I encourage you to sit down with somebody who can help you see the beauty and the love within you, because I know it exists. So, love, self-love, it doesn't mean ignoring our needs, okay? I want you to understand that. Self-love does not mean ignoring our needs. If you need a day to take a long walk, then you need to do it. If you need a day to get away, then you need to do it. If you need a way to just get a break from your kids or your significant other, you need to do that. If you need a day off from work, you need to do that. That's self-love. And I think so many people think it's selfish, and we've heard already, self-love isn't selfish, but it means honoring yourself fiercely. And I have this quote: self-love doesn't mean ignoring our needs. It means honoring them fiercely. And what I did that I didn't realize I was doing to keep my head above water was was consistently going to the gym to work out. And that was my way of showing myself how much I loved myself. But I didn't know I was doing it at that time. So think about right now what you're doing to show yourself how much you love yourself. Or are you just taking care of other people? And I want you to think about why. Why are you ignoring the care you need to give to yourself? I'm going to tell you right now, that will get you nowhere. That will get you isolated. That will get you sad and depressed. I've been there. I've allowed myself to be so engulfed with other people's needs that I just allowed myself to just kind of wither away. And that's sort of what's been happening in my life for the past couple of years. And I knew it was happening. But being strong Jody, I thought, well, I can handle this because I can handle everything. Well, guess what, Jode? You know that life's not perfect. And there are going to be bumps in the road that you need to buckle up for. So why don't we get really clear on what it is that you need? Why don't we get really present to what Jody needs, and to you, everybody who's listening, what you need to start loving yourself more. You can read every self-help book out there, every self-love book out there, but if you're not doing the damn work, it ain't gonna happen. I didn't build these muscles in my body from not doing anything. I didn't become more self-aware by not working on myself and finding the right people who can help me dive deeper. And even though it was scary holding my hand to do that, I have put myself in very vulnerable situations that made me really, really, really uncomfortable, that made me cry, that hurt my heart because I wanted to grow. I wasn't growing in my marriage to the man who was the father of my children, he's still around, the father of my daughters. He didn't want to grow the same way I was growing. He was growing, he was building his wealth, but he wasn't growing emotionally that I needed him to be partners. So I said, I'm going to do this on my own, and I'm going to show my daughters what a strong woman is. I want to be that role model for them. You have to figure out what's important to you. Money can be important to you, self-growth, but find out, think to yourself, why is the money important to you? Think about, what is your passion? What is your purpose? You've heard people talk about this already. I don't need to repeat myself. You've heard other people talking. What is your passion? What is your purpose? What is it that you are so passionate about that you want to change? I've been in rooms with women that are changing people's lives, like in huge ways. I want to be one of those people. And every time I go on another retreat, I gain more and more clarity. And I am going to be offering retreats to you, so you all have to stay alerted to them. They're going to be coming in the spring. So I want to invite you to think about one way you can begin to start nurturing self-love. It can be small. I want you to write down, as I said, write down all the things that you love about yourself. Do it. It's not always easy. And it comes down to self-respect. You can't have other people respecting you if you don't respect yourself. And if you don't have that love for yourself, then more than likely you're not going to have the self-respect. You've got to love yourself first. That's what comes first. And it's not selfish. It's not conceited. It's about taking care of yourself mentally and physically. So as I said before, a lot of people lately, because of the big leap that I made in August when I decided to, I'll share this story with you. And I think you'll be able to take away a lot from this story. So I left my marriage, got divorced in 2002, was in a toxic relationship for about 5 years, and had my business, was competing, was coaching other women to compete. And in the middle of all of that chaos, I forgot about me. And even though my daughters were in college and so on, I was still their mommy, still there all the time. And I had clients who needed me and everything. And I just kind of forgot about me. It was sort of like the physical looked good, but what was really going on inside? And I just needed a lot of clarity. And then I met the man that I'm married to now, and we got married in 2019. And I knew there were red flags that I was ignoring. He's a very good human being. He's uh not an evil person. He's not abusive. It's just, I always felt like we weren't vibrating on the same levels. And I don't blame anybody else for what happened to me or for me in my life. We are in charge of our own destiny. I made the decision to be married to my husband for 17 years, my ex-husband. I made the decision to be in a toxic relationship for 5 or 6 years. I made the decision to date my husband and get married to him. And I made the decision in all of those relationships, those are my 3 significant relationships, to also ignore the red flags. We didn't have the word red flags back then. But I was ignoring the things that made you go, and and keep thinking. They call those red flags now. And the red flags are those things that hit you in the gut. It's your gut instinct telling you, this doesn't feel right. There's something about this that doesn't feel right. But we let our ego, which was holding me back in my marriage to my ex-husband, my ego and fear were keeping me like, how am I going to be by myself? How am I going to be a single mom? What are people going to think? So it was fear and ego. And then in the toxic relationship, I was embarrassed that I was in a relationship like that. So again, ego was stopping me from saying, fuck you. I don't want to be with you. This isn't working for me. This is a horrible relationship. And now in my relationship with my husband now, I'm very self-aware and I am very open about the things that I need from him and what I will not tolerate because I'm too damn old and I'm too damn smart and I've lived too much life to know that I deserve better when I deserve better. So self-care, again, self-care to self-worth. When we're not taking care of ourselves, we lack self-worth. When I left my marriage in 2002, I was taking care of myself. I did have self-worth, but I had low self-esteem. What was happening to me in the last couple of years since I closed my studio, I have been struggling with my self-worth. I have been struggling with what am I doing next? I love doing this show. This gives me so much worth. And I hope that you're getting so much value from it. But when we start taking care of ourselves and not allowing ourselves to not take care of ourselves because somebody else needs us so much more that they need our supply to keep themselves afloat. And I do not like to put labels on things. So anybody who knows where I'm going with this can take it for what it is because I will not label this. But it is a personality disorder. Okay. And when I started realizing the supply, the everything that I was giving to my husband and everything that I wasn't getting back emotionally, I started to resent him. And that is not a good way to have a marriage. So I sought out help, and it was sort of a back and forth. I would give so much, expecting to get that same back from him, that it would be reciprocated, right? But once again, it wasn't reciprocated. So I would be really hurt. So now I'm hurt and I'm resentful. And then you start having contempt towards this person, and none of these feelings are good. They make you feel sick inside. So what do we want to do? We want to get rid of those feelings. What can we do? So I would go back and say, what do you need from me? How can I help you? So I gave him his supply because he had ways of making me feel bad for not being there for him. Some may call it manipulation. Again, I'm not going to put a label on it, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Self-care is an indulgence. It's a non-negotiable. And I wasn't taking care of myself. And I felt myself kind of falling through the tracks. Yes, I was still going to the gym, but was I all that consistent? I wasn't sleeping well. I started to self-isolate a little bit because I didn't really want to go out with him as a couple anymore because things between us were awkward. So how do you go out? And I just wasn't really sharing it with many of my friends because I was embarrassed. I knew myself well enough to know that this wasn't right. And I need to know from all of you listening right now, have you ever felt that way? Have you ever chosen to be there for somebody else while they suck all the friggin' energy out of you and you're not there for yourself? I want you to choose self-care that you can commit to, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. And that's how it started with me. I really started to meditate and or journal. And my meditation was nothing fancy. It was laying in bed and visualizing who I was, where I was, and how that felt. And little by little, I got clearer and clearer with it. So I want you to take away from this. If you can spend 5 minutes a day visualizing the life that you want, visualizing the relationship that you want, the changes you might want to make, whether it's a coworker or it's a significant other or it's a friend. I was just on the phone with somebody this morning, and she was talking about a friend that she's had for so many years, like over 20 years, and how she doesn't feel good around that friend anymore. And I said, just because she was your good friend 20 years ago doesn't mean she's your good friend now. You've outgrown each other, or you've outgrown her. Send her love and create some separation between the two of you. And eventually, if you can talk about it, then that would be great and beneficial for both of you. But you don't need to stay when it doesn't feel healthy anymore. If a relationship isn't making you feel joyful and loved and cared for and safe, then it's not the right relationship for you. If you are putting everything into it and you're not getting back what you deserve, and I'm telling you, you deserve it, then you need to think about what it is that needs to change. Maybe you need some separation. Maybe you need to just get away for a weekend. Maybe you need to get somebody to help you talk to each other in a different way. For me, when I went on my retreat in June, it was called Presence, and we did not talk. We had no devices for 2.5 days. I journaled like crazy, and I started getting very clear on the things that were priorities for me. And it was then that I realized, and my sweater today says love on it. It was then that I realized that I had stopped loving myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't have any joy in my life. Yes, when I'm with my daughters, I have moments of joy, but they're grown. That doesn't mean I can't have joy with them, but they're not my source of joy. I have to be my source of joy. Oh, I told you this was going to be a lot to unpack. I want you to try to share your own stories of self-care with people in your life. How are you taking care of yourself? Write it down, share it with a friend who's your confidant. Hey, listen, Lisa, I realize I've forgotten to love myself. I've forgotten to take really good care of myself. I need to soothe my soul. I need to nurture myself because nobody else is doing it for me. I have to rely on myself. And you know what? That's okay. Learn to rely on yourself, because if we're looking for validation from other people, we're never gonna really have it. We have to do it for ourselves first. So I want you to write that love letter. I want you to 5 minutes a day to meditate, visualize on the life that you want. And I also want you to write your own story of how you're going to protect your heart and how you're going to take care of yourself. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is love. So in August, I woke up and I realized that I could no longer live the life that I was living. I had become small. I had become mediocre, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And that scared the shit out of me. So I got in the car, I packed up a bunch of things, grabbed my pup, and I took off. And we're trying to figure shit out right now. We have to meet in the middle because, as I said at the beginning, you cannot clap with one hand. You need two hands to clap. If you are going through something, anything similar to me, where a relationship is not working for you. Like I said to you, I was talking to a friend this morning who said that she doesn't feel good about this friend in her life anymore. So I wasn't feeling good in my marriage anymore. So I told him I was taking off and trying to find what we can work on together separately. Each party needs to work on things on their own, and it may take a while. And that's why people are calling me brave. But it was survival. I don't really think of myself as being brave, but I guess I was, because who the hell would have ever thought that at 63 years old, I was going to get in a car and drive 1,200 miles with my dog? I think it was even farther, but I did. And you can do it too. You have the power and the ability to change anything in your life. Do not let fear or ego get in your way. Follow your gut. Please love yourself. Write that love letter to yourself. Find the time to meditate. Talk about to your friends how you're taking care of yourself. Unpack all that shit. You don't need it. And I love you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fearlessly Authentic. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. We have a 5-star rating. And please share this podcast with everybody you know. And until next week, go live your most fearlessly authentic life. Bye-bye, everyone.